borders are more than just geopolitical demarcations. They are, I should say, like cultural technologies. Now, they don't just regulate territories or sovereignty or laws, but they also regulate ideas and values and identities. So in terms of like navigating how borders construct our identities, I think we have to start from the position that identity is not fixed, but is formed in relation to borders, to whatever the borders are. But it's like I feel like your identity is a matter of positioning where you are and how you identify with and the people that you're around.
I like salad. Do you like salad?
Welcome to Canadian Salad,
a fun, factual, and friendly podcast about culture and integration in Canada.
I'm one of your hosts. I'm Ho Shen Ho from China, currently living in Vancouver, unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
And I'm your other host, Andrea McCoy, an immigrant from the United States, broadcasting you from the unceded traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations.
And you're listening to Canadian Salad!
All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us, new and old listeners.
Welcome back.
Yes, Canadian Salad.
Hopefully a lot of new.
A lot of new, yes. All of y'all watching our TikToks and hopefully saying some nice things. Actually, TikTok's been really nice lately, so I'll take it.
Thank God, finally. We're always getting a lot of trolls. Finally.
Yes. We have a new guest. I actually heard her, Hoshin and I heard her on another podcast, and where she shared a poem about borders. And honestly, it was very, very impactful. And I told myself, like, I want to have this person on the podcast. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Suzanne Peñola. Am I saying your last name correct?
Perfect, actually.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Suzanne, why don't you give our listeners a little introduction of who you are and something about yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Suzanne Peñola. People call me Sam. It's an abbreviation, I should say, like an acronym of 3 first names. It's Suzanne Alexa Maria.
Nice. I like it.
Oh, SAL.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, my mom signed me up for a lifetime of not putting my name into legal documents, but
Dang. It's the system's fault. It's not your mom.
Yeah, true.
Trying to be creative. But yeah, people call me Sam. I'm 25 years old. I recently just graduated university with a bachelor's degree in political science last year in November.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Thank you. I was born and raised in the Philippines. I moved here when I was 17. So it was 2017. I came here as an international student with my brother, and my mom was actually, I did a little bit of research on you both. My mom did the same master's degree as the both of you in Royal Roads, and I saw that you guys graduated in 2017. That's the year that she also came. I'm like, oh wow!
What?
International Intercultural Communications.
Yes. Yeah. So your mom is an alumni as well.
Yeah.
Wow. When did she graduate?
Oh my gosh. 2019, I should say, or 2020.
2019. Okay. Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, we love your mom.
We go way back.
Next podcast, we bring your mom on the show.
Honestly, yes. I should
family.
Connect. There you go. Absolutely. Oh, that's
We can talk about our professors.
The ones we liked. Yeah. Those.
And the one
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to the topic. That was an interesting connection that we have. Thank you.
Yeah. But my family do a lot of cultural work here. We volunteer for the Filipino community here. My family co-founded the Bayanihan Creative Collective, which is basically the performing arts branch of the Filipino Association here. So we had multiple production since 2019.
Oh, wow.
And we just finished another production in February. It's called Maria Cacao. It's about Filipino mythology from my hometown, but we also tied in a little bit of environmental advocacy into it. So I'm an artist. I'm a musician and a dancer, so I'm very into the arts, and I love writing. So I just really like to immerse myself in that world.
Wow.
Wow.
It's the most interesting thing about me, I guess.
No, I love that.
You can do anything.
Yeah.
Good job. No,
You're like-
thank
you're
you.
like
Except sports.
Except, yeah, me
Who
too.
care about
I'm
sports?
not built for sports.
No, me neither.
No,
I'm a
who care about
walker. I walk.
sports?
I can walk. Yeah. Can you walk? Because we could walk together. Thank you, Sam. I love, it sounds like there's just so many intersections with the arts, but also culture. And we talk a lot about like culture and what that actually embodies. And it's so many different things. So I would love if you could read your poem to us. Sam, I'll give you the microphone.
Take it away.
Yeah.
So this poem is entitled Lessons in Borders. For today's lesson, I will teach you about borders. Google says that a border is a line that separates two political and geographical areas. My political science classes might argue that borders protect a country's sovereignty. We made these lines, invisible lines, into arbitrary entities of separation. These lines that we cannot see hold so much power over human identities. Borders. For today's lesson, I will teach you about our borders. Our borders look like a classroom with a colored sign that says, "You are welcome here," plastered on doors. Yet every whisper in the hallways of, "We don't see color," was a, "You speak very good English for a, you're very smart considering, you're very lucky to be here since." Our borders are a language that cannot even pronounce my last name. Accents that become measuring sticks for how well I can speak it. The culture I bring is an assessment. It tells you if I'm the good and subservient immigrant, or the immigrant that's going to take your job, the immigrant that will crash the housing market, or the immigrant whose presence compels you to pay extra on your taxes. All these are but short steps towards a platform that will either make a trophy or a dustpan of my existence. Our borders are the tones of a question hanging at the tip of your tongue. Sometimes our borders are you. For today's lesson, you will learn that we don't stop crossing borders when the officer gives us the stamp of approval. Because being a migrant means always crossing borders to find freedom in labels. Immigrant, refugee, skilled worker, unskilled worker, alien, undocumented, illegal. Words build as easily as they deform. Words create stories, and your words are more powerful than mine. Our borders are tapestries of a narrative you weave with watched fingers, a brick wall you build between you and me. Each brick a question, a sentence, a name, an event that identifies my differences to you. And differences are threatening. The higher the brick wall, the smaller we become. And things that are small and threatening don't belong on the other side of the brick wall, but under it, crushed with the bones whose land this was stolen from. There are no instructions that come with my identity, no armor that comes with bearing my skin. You say this country is multicultural, but multicultural has the same number of syllables as assimilation. For today's lesson, I will teach you about borders and how I keep crossing them. I carry the soil of my home on the sole of my shoes. Every step forward costs a crumble of the home I left behind, because cleaner shoes make it easier to climb over the brick wall. But it's funny how in my country, it's customary to remove shoes when you enter a house that isn't yours.
That is so good.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you.
Sam, what prompted you to write the poem? What was there an event? Was it an assignment in school?
So it was an assignment at school. I took an English elective class. It's called Refugee Narrative in Literature.
Very cool. Wow.
That's the title of the course. And we were tasked to read a lot of literature that combats the refugee narrative that is filtered through the Eurocentric lens. And for each of those readings, they were tasked to have an assignment where we either write like a paper or a poem, or just basically have creative liberty to do whatever you want, but it should be reflective of what you've learned. And I'm not a refugee, I am an immigrant. And it took me so long to write the assignment. The professor gave us around 2 weeks to write the assignment, and I wasn't able to write it until like literally the night before.
Wow.
Because I was so focused on just really sticking to like the refugee narrative, but I can't exactly relate to being a refugee. So the night before, I was in my dorm room, and I was just lying there awake, and then my mind was like a blank slate. And then suddenly I just remembered all of the encounters that I've had, conversations that I've had in high school, all these microaggressions, all these side comments that were made about how good I speak English, how like excellent my language is, and they can't tell that I was not born here, and just all of these snide comments. And then I found myself just writing lines out of order. The title was supposed to be Lessons in Migration, or to be a migrant. But I found myself always using the word borders for some reason. And like, why am I always using the word borders? And it got me just thinking about how oval borders isn't just something that separates state lines or like separates two countries or different cities. Like, there are borders within borders, and borders within cultures, and borders just within us. And so it's just, my creative process is just all over the place. But that's basically how the poem came to be, was from a class, and then it just trickled into something more than just a written assignment.
Wow. Yeah.
Sometimes when inspiration hits, nothing can stop you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And it sounds like, because for so many of the pathways that people come to Canada, right? And I think you touched on this in the poem about how words can either build up or deform. And so often it's like, I'm not a person, I'm a immigrant. That's
Label,
not a person. They're a migrant. They're a temporary foreign worker. And the fact that you were drawn to the border aspect as opposed to that label, it really encompasses like all of us. Was there any line that for you really resonated with your own experience coming to Canada?
Like line written in the poem?
Yeah.
Gosh, that is I can't choose, because every line, I will say that every line in this poem I've derived from my own experience. But I think just that on the top of my head, it's the line where I say our borders look like a classroom. Because that is a very real thing that has happened. I was in 11th grade. Yeah, and ironically, it wasn't a social science or social justice class, where I walk in the classroom, and there was multiple there were pride flags. There were different flags of different countries, and then there was a banner that says "You are welcome here," or just "All are welcome here." And yet, when I spoke in class to explain like a certain concept and relate it to my own experience, because my teacher at the time was asking a question, she then asked me in front of the class if I was born here, to which I answered, no, I just quite literally just moved here like 3-4 months ago. And then she said, oh, your language is excellent. And I'm like, that's kind of ironic, given all of these. There are various trophies, various accolades of like acceptance and diversity, and yet that's the thing that I That's what I hear from you. And at the time, I didn't really think of it as a microaggression. I didn't think of it as a bad thing. Um, to me, it was more about I registered it as a compliment because, well, in the Philippines, like, we use English as a medium of instruction, and we even have this social culture in the Philippines where the more fluent or the more westernized your accent is when you speak in English, the better you are. You're from a higher social class, or you went to really good schools, or just have better access to better education. And so, because that is the social culture and the norms that I grew up in, I registered what my teacher told me as something that was positive.
Sure.
And then I kept receiving those kinds of comments. I'm like, okay, well, once or twice is probably, I can probably forgive the comment once or twice, but every single time throughout my academic experience, I keep hearing it's like a mosquito bite, like being bitten by a mosquito once or twice is fine.
Not too annoying. Yeah.
But if you get like swarms of them all over your skin, it's kind of it gets painful.
Yeah.
Because what do you mean that, my language is excellent? Because as opposed to what?
Right. Right. It's always it implies so much comparison.
Yeah.
Or this measurement, like you said in the poem, there's this assessment of the kind of grade or quality of person I am.
Yeah. I mean, that itself is a border, right? It's a line, that your English, that line draws, your English is the line there, you're good or bad. The measures, as you know, in Philippines, maybe is also related to class. Here is related to how assimilated you are to the culture. So it's already about a line, about a border.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for that. I know in this poem you have argued that borders are not necessarily is a great thing, but some might argue that borders keep us safe. Countries, even before even tribes will, have their own borders, no matter how visible and invisible they are, and they even will use force to keep those border intact. So some might argue that borders keep us safe. Some even are, advocate that there should be no border at all, and we all just should live in one world. Can borders be part of culture? Can border be part of our identity? And how do you navigate that if we do see border as part of us?
I do think that borders are currently a part of our culture, but I'm speaking from a position where I grew up in a country, I was raised in a country that has so many different cultures. And it's because we can very easily identify which culture is what and who belongs in what culture and who practices what culture because of borders, right? We know when I travel from one city, even if it's just 20 minutes away. I grew up in a city where 20 minutes away from where I live is an entirely different city, and they have practice entirely different culture. So and that's just me speaking from somebody who comes from a country with a lot of cultures. I grew up with people who practice different religions and practice different cultures. But I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, and I come from, I'm a descendant of Christian settlers. So it's, like I said earlier, the city that I grew up in is only 20 minutes away from a city that has an entirely different culture. But we speak the same language.
You're in the same country.
We're in the same country, but
Right.
The multiple, Would it fair to say that our identity somehow is because of the existence of borders? We are formed under the existence of borders. Because of border, we have groups, we have we form cultures and identities, customs. Would it be fair to say that, do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. There's definitely a lot more nuance to that, because I think that I have more than one identity now, migrating to Canada and officially becoming a citizen. in Canada. And even just becoming a citizen in Canada, I already have a different identity.
Yeah.
Because when I was still in the Philippines, I was Catholic, I was a Filipino. That was my identity.
Right.
But then coming
Mhm.
here, I'm bringing my heritage and my culture. But then I was also an international student. I was on statist here. So
Mhm.
my sense of identity sort of got lost in my attempt to, like, I should say, like, be assimilated here.
Yeah.
I guess
Mhm.
it's like normal for anybody who is a
Yeah.
newcomer, like in you trying to integrate yourself into a new society, into a
Yeah.
new culture. You lose bits and bits of your
Uh,
heritage, of your culture, until you get completely disconnected.
that
Right.
reminds me of one of the lines in your poem, which I personally very resonate with. I think the line reads something about, you bring the soil of your home in the soles of your shoes, and
Oh yeah.
with every step, your home is crumbling. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think
Mm.
I
Yeah.
really resonate with that line because, yeah, exactly like you said. And I think even last week, or we talked about 2 weeks ago, actually, me and Andrew also had an episode about sometime now that we had lived in Canada for so long, going back home is always something
Mhm.
already home for us.
Mhm.
Already kind of shifted the idea of it. We no
Yeah.
Yeah.
longer when we go back, we no longer feel like we're one of them
Mm-hmm.
anymore,
Mhm.
because at home, as you mentioned, is crumbling down with every step that we take in this new place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
our identity is different.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And there's people who mark us by the fact that we are now within and contained within a border. I mean,
Yeah.
Hmm.
I immigrated from the States. So, it's not, a lot of people are like, well, that's nothing. You didn't really immigrate. And yeah, to an extent, I really didn't. At the same time, there have been a lot of shifts
Yeah.
that I've navigated. And so what's fascinating is that even if you're in Vancouver in BC, and you have the border between the United States and Canada, it's
Mhm.
literally a line, and there's a plant that shares the same border. And
Yeah.
yet, because I'm on one side of the fence, I am no longer considered what I would be on the other side of the fence because of
Mm.
that fence. And to me, when I hear politicians, or when I hear even a lot of Canadians talk about immigrants, or the fact that, well, we can't help those people over there because they're over there and we're Canada, and we've drawn this arbitrary line, and that's why we can't help people, because this line exists, because that's what stops us. I think in many ways, it's really kind of funny and silly and absurd that we've just somehow established that fence line is the border, and over there is, this country, and over here is that country.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Like,
It is really
two
interesting.
countries that share so much history together can
Hmm.
be can also be like drastically different in terms of like just attitudes, or
Yeah.
just your behavior, your attitudes to politics, to just
Mm-hmm.
your
To
social
people
norms.
around you. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it is that border, right? That border, even though
Yeah.
however arbitrary we think it is, it also changes, education, it
Mhm.
changes political environment,
Healthcare.
also
Yeah.
Yeah.
healthcare, it changes people's
Laws.
view to immigrants because the news is different, social media is different, your neighbor becomes different,
Yeah.
safety becomes different, right? So I think that however arbitrary we think the border is, it definitely nurtures different people.
Yeah.
Um, Even though I would say Seattle and Vancouver, literally just like 2 hour drives away. That and
But
then
very
it is
different.
that, yeah, and
Yeah.
it can be that different, that border.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yes.
Yeah.
You had a question to ask, Andrew, I believe. Before
Yeah.
cutting, yeah.
No. I have not been proud to be American for a long time, so I am the worst person to ask. So I guess I would ask both of you. I mean, both of you are proudly your ethnicity. You're proudly Filipino. You're proudly Chinese. Can borders create that sense of identity at the same time, as much as it maybe deconstructs it, maybe it kind of defines it when maybe you are living abroad or encountering something that is different than your own culture?
Do you want
Hmm.
to go first, or?
You can go first. I don't mind.
I think both. I think it, um, in my experience, it definitely did both. It kind of just did deconstruct my identity a little bit when I was very new here. And I just like very simple, like very minute things. Like I have naturally like wavy hair, and then I came here, I kept straightening it, and I just tried not to. When I speak English, I really try to just hide my
Your accent,
accent.
yeah.
Mm.
So it's because I was trying to really hard to assimilate, not necessarily integrate, but in because assimilation is just letting go of your
Of your
identity
own, yeah.
of your own. Whereas integration, I would say, is just, you know,
Mix of both, yeah. Yeah.
bringing your identity, your culture, and your heritage, and just sharing it with everybody. So I would say definitely did both to me.
Mm.
And then as I've been here longer, I would say it was a 180 switch, but the fact that I'm here, the fact that I'm being defined, my identity was being defined by the border that is now engulfing me.
Mm.
I'm desperately trying to cling on to my identity that okay, I know that I'm here. I'm an international student. The goal is to get my permanent residency and then my citizenship, but I'm still Filipino inside.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
in that steps to in my ladder of integrating to Canadian society, I'm like also desperately I'm bringing up my shadow with me. So I'm like
Mm.
climbing up the ladder, and then it's like my identity, my Filipino identity is like falling off as a shadow, and I'm like desperately trying to bring it back up, like come back, don't
Mhm.
go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
definitely did both to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. For me, I think my relationship with border first, my Chinese identity, obviously, it was formed definitely because the border, because I live in China. In
Mm,
many ways, is not, there's no any, you know, like free will there for me to form whatever identity I had before. It was just because of living there and
Sure.
everything was forced to me.
mhm,
And then I developed this identity. And then to say proud, I think the idea of proud comes to my mind when I actually living out of China, outside of China for a while. And even finding that idea of proud, that balance of proud, I says, is a bit difficult because, of course, there's a lot of negative thing associated with being,
mm,
a Chinese or even the Chinese government. But like realizing I need to feel proud of it or realizing I have to find balance proud of it also because I'm out of it. I'm in different border now. There's different identity, the different ideology is around me and sometimes forcing me to confront differences. Because as Sam also mentioned that I think all immigrants feel that pressure to assimilate. Feel like,
yeah.
if you don't want to be picked on, if you don't be bullied, if you don't want to be the target
Yeah.
of a harassment anyway, you have assimilation
Mhm,
seems like the easiest way. So yeah, and the process of assimilation is have to figure out what do you have with you right now that you have to throw out of the window, which is,
yeah.
what kind of idea you have, custom you have, with what kind of food do you like. You all
Mhm,
have to confront yourself with that. And
Yeah.
that is the moment that I definitely during that kind of, confusion. I mean, in confuse a process of assimilation is when I finally, I guess, ask myself the true question: What is important to me? How do I
mhm,
anchor myself in this time that I have to pick and choose? So now, when I say proud of my identity, when I say being proud of the Chinese, I don't mean the identity that I brought with me when I come to Canada. When I say proud of how as a Chinese, I mean this new version of me with Canadianness, or this new environment that already encompassed within me. This new version of this Chinese Hoshin me. So when I say proud, I mean that part.
Hmm.
Because I don't think I necessarily was proud of the old version when I just, came to here.
Hmm.
So that would be how I say that's my story of navigating that.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, when you were talking about the pieces kind of being sewn together, I was imagining Canada's border and then China's border and then seeing like this big, weird, quirky blanket like being sewn together. It was really neat. That would be a cool country, you know? Just sew
Yeah.
those two
I
together.
mean, you kind of cut the
It's
pieces.
a bit, yeah, there's some mountains
Yeah,
in
kind of
there.
bit here and there to make sure they can fit together, and then you
Sure.
sew them together.
For sure. I mean, and that's what, yeah, I think that's what we're doing every day, consciously, unconsciously. There's just no end of that compromise and maybe that merging of those identities. Sam, this line for me, I don't know, when I first heard it, I've heard it so often from so many of my other immigrant friends or friends who come here through a type of immigration pathway, refugees. But it is the part where you say, quote, "The culture I bring is an assessment. It tells me if I am the good subservient immigrant, and I believe the immigrant that takes your job or is responsible for the lack of housing." I think that line just was the gut punch for me because that is the reality of so many immigrants that are here. I mean, a quarter of Canada's population are immigrants. And so this isn't anything new under the sun. This is something that since, for a very long time, people have been feeling. I'm wondering from your perspective and in the ways in your journey, but also in maybe learning or hearing the other voices from refugee or migrant perspectives, is there a way to get out of this mindset of assessing one another all the time based on and measuring people based on their culture, saying, well, you are check this, you are check that? From your perspective, is there any way to get out of that mindset?
Well, my answer is not going to be unique. It's not going to be new. This is something that multiple scholars and even immigrant writers, refugee writers have been contributing to the discourse. It's just really dismantling the myth of the good immigrant. Because when I wrote that line that the culture that I bring is an assessment and it tells you if I'm the good or subservient immigrant, that was that line came to me because of a conversation that I've had with someone, and we were talking about the immigration policies and just how fast they are changing, and it's really negatively affecting all the temporary workers that are already here. And this person had said that, yes, we need to get rid of, they were talking about a certain demographic of immigrants. And then I turned to him and I said, well, I'm an immigrant. He said, well, you guys are the good guys. So all the Filipino immigrants that I know are hardworking. They never complain. They're always smiling, and I can vibe with them. And so in my head, I got to think, well, it doesn't really matter. Like people don't, there's a dominant culture here, don't see don't even see all immigrants as equal. Like they put immigrants in a hierarchy.
They do, yeah.
So it's just, and so just dismantling the myth of the good immigrant. And by what I mean by the good immigrant, it's just the figure of someone who is hardworking, someone who's grateful, someone who's eager to assimilate, and most importantly, somebody who's apolitical. And at face value, this seems at face value, this seems like a good thing. It seems something very positive, but this is inherently very conditional and exclusionary, and it really just implies that our worth as immigrants is tied to our compliance.
Yeah.
How we're subservient to the dominant culture. And it's just, it's that label, that whole connotation of you're the good guys. We want you here. We don't want them. It's used as a narrative to just really silence any criticism towards systemic racism and discrimination. And this also eventually just pits immigrants against each other.
Right. Right.
And that,
and it's
for white people in their attempt to uplift uplift or just praise another, just one demographic of immigrants, they're putting down another, and it creates this sort of social hierarchy just within the immigrant community. And, oh, well, the white people like me, so I don't know what you're doing. You're doing something wrong.
Right. Right.
And this really comes into light with just the recent rhetoric or anti-immigrant sentiment that is really just growing here in Canada. And it's always very specifically there. It's always very specifically targeted towards a specific demographic of immigrants, a specific ethnicity, specific culture.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I see it all the time in social media when I open like TikTok or when I open Instagram or Facebook. It's always a specific culture. And like, well, we're all immigrants. They're also hardworking.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We come here and we want a better life for ourselves. We want to make something of ourselves. And that's why we came here. We chose this country because of what it has to offer and what we have to offer as well. Because it's a melting pot. Like Canada prides itself on being a melting pot and being multicultural, but their purview and their metric of multiculturalism and being multicultural is really filtered through a Eurocentric lens. Okay, you can practice your culture as long as
but only so
it fits.
loud or so far.
As long as it fits our standard, as long as you're not doing your festivities or you're not being loud in the streets, you're not forming a whole block party to celebrate whatever cultural festivals you're celebrating. And I find that all immigrants, regardless of your ethnicity or your culture, they receive this kind of sentiment, and we're all under attack under this narrative. But there's a specific culture that this is usually targeted to. And I'm also noticing with other immigrants as well, especially immigrants who've already established themselves here, the ones who have already been here, who've like raised families here. Because they've already established themselves, they also contribute to the discourse, to the narrative. I'm like, well, I did my time. I did everything right. I followed the rules.
Right.
So why should things be easier for you? And that's what's more heartbreaking. I find this is the kind of rhetoric that I expect from the dominant culture here. I expect this from a white person, but to hear that from somebody who also wears the same skin as I do, is that it's a lot more hurtful, and it just really sets us back. It just really sets back the work that a lot of immigrants have put into trying to dismantle all of these barriers, all in this hierarchy. And it's
It's you definitely on the nail there. I think it's this differentiation, and this narrative definitely pull us up, like pull us against each other too. That is also a lot to unpack there for sure.
There is, yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm telling you, this poem, Suzanne's, your work, I'm just, honestly, we could do this for, like, have an episode a week, and there would be stuff like, I'm so serious. I love your poem. I really appreciate
thank you.
Your perspective, honestly, and the work that you're doing, and your generosity of time, and even your sharing your poem with us and for those who listen. So, is there, is this poem published anywhere that people could find, or?
No. Well, it is published in our newsletter in the Filipino community.
Oh, okay.
It's called Ilaw. It's the Ilaw newsletter. It means light in English, to which I am now editor-in-chief.
Oh, congrats.
Did you get inherit that, or?
I inherited it.
Okay.
I didn't publish that poem myself. It was published by the previous.
Got you.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was published last year. But other than that, and then I shared it in with the previous podcast that I did with ICA.
Right. Yes.
So I guess that's just where, and also in the files of my professor.
Okay.
The fire professor.
It's in there somewhere.
I think it's a very powerful piece. It's very powerful.
Exactly. And so thank you so much to share that with us.
Yeah.
And I think it
Thank you.
resonates with a lot of immigrants for sure. At least me. At least me and Andrea.
Yes,
we got
for
us
sure.
at least.
So
yeah.
Yeah. Huge fans.
But,
huge fans. Next poem, let us know. But now we are ending our episode, and we traditionally end it with a Canadian salad pop quiz, where we quiz each other on a topic related
and our
question
guest
and our guest related to the topic that we talked about. So no plans other than we're all just gonna like pull answers out of our noses and see whoever gets it right gets 1,000 gold stars. So
yes.
Are you ready for 1,000 gold stars, Suzanne?
Yeah.
All right, great. Hoshin, why don't you go first with your question?
Okay. My question is definitely related to borders, obviously. It's actually about Canada's coastlines. It's, another type of borders.
Oh.
In terms of the world's longest coastline, where do you think Canada rank?
Like as
The
far as
largest
the
coastline.
largest?
The longest, yeah, like, if the longest is number one, like 1, 2, 3, 4. I can give you some hints. The top 3 is Indonesia, Canada, and Russia. So where can where do you think Canada's 1 or 2 or 3?
Oh, he boiled it down to 3 options.
No, round 1, 2, 3. Just need to think about 1, 2, 3.
I'm going to say number
1.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think
Yeah,
1 too.
we both
I
think
it
number
has
1?
the largest coastal line. Yeah.
Yeah, final answer. Locked in?
Yeah,
We need to call. Can we call your mom? Your mom might know.
50-50.
Let's call mom.
Okay, the answer is correct. Canada has the longest coastline in the world.
That's right. Girl power.
Indonesia is second and Russia is third. United States is fourth.
Good.
And then it's China.
They should stay that way. Anyway. No.
I
And then
think
China.
Andrea,
Oh
what
my
about your
gosh.
question? What's your question?
Okay. My question to both of you is, in what year was the Canadian border drawn between Canada and the United States?
Oh my gosh.
I know that one.
Wasn't this on the citizenship test, I think?
It is. I'm
Yeah.
so embarrassed.
And we
to
all
not
took it,
remember.
so it's okay.
I mean, I know that one. Should
Any
I say
guesses?
the answer?
Any guess? Oh, you know?
It's not a guess. I know.
He knows the answer. I forgot.
I know the answer.
You memorizing factoids here now that you're a Canadian citizen?
Because I don't know, it's just in my mind.
I'm just kidding. Okay, Suzanne, before Hoshin says anything, do you have a guess?
Oh my God. I have dates for when Canadians burned the White House, but not.
The important dates, yeah.
It's just a random year. Give us a random year. It's fine. Give us
Oh
a
my
random
God.
year.
The only year that I have in my brain right now is 1761.
761. Well, I'd be too early.
Wow.
Canada's
A
not
little
formed
too
yet.
early.
Just a
I
tad.
know, it's
yeah.
a little too early.
All right,
Oh my
Hoshin, tell us
God.
the answer.
It is 1908.
No, it's not.
Oh! The US, what? I thought the US-Canadian border was drawn to the Treaty of 1908.
So, okay. Let me just look that. I'm on the Canadian Encyclopedia, so I'm not pulling this out of my nose.
Let me Google
Okay.
that too.
So originally in 1818, a British American convention clarified the western border between Canada and the United States, basically the 49th parallel. But it wasn't until closer to your dates, it was between 1901 and 1907, new lines were cut and old ones cleared and missing markers were replaced. So that's when it was finalized. But the first time a border was drawn was 1818.
Is your question
Oh.
about the first time it was drawn or it was finalized?
I don't know. So you're
Roll the tape.
we have the receipts. No, we got to end this. I got to be right. No.
Oh my gosh.
You're probably right, Hoshin. You're smarter, younger than me, so it makes sense.
If your question was about when it was first drawn, then you're right. But it was about, when it's finalized, I am
Finalized.
right.
Okay. Well, for folks who are listening, you can like Team Hoshin or Team Andrea. Whatever. Or you can hang out with Suzanne in the 1700s. That's okay too.
She was way out there.
Why not? Why not? It's a
Why
good time.
not?
Yeah, for Cole.
Yeah. For some people.
For some people. Yeah, weird. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Huge thanks to Suzanne for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. If
Oh,
you have any comments or thoughts, you can email us hello@canadiansalad.ca, or if you listen on Spotify, you can directly message and text us your thoughts right there from your phone. Really easy peasy lemon squeezy. Follow us. We are on TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and that's it, because that's too many social media platforms.
We're not on Facebook. Too much. Not on TikTok.
No.
Not on Snapchat.
Or
No.
X. Ew. No.
Yeah, not on X either. Not on Hinge. Not on Bumble.
Oh my God, not the Hinge.
But Tumblr. Tumblr.
Tumblr. No. Not Tumblr. MySpace.
Oh my God, I
Does that still
exist? I remember MySpace. It was so short-lived. Or Friendster. I don't know if like people even know about Friendster now.
I have no idea what that is.
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's kind of like Facebook, but
We're too
very
old.
friendly.
Very friendly.
Oh.
Very friendly.
We should bring that back. Oh gosh. But I do remember MySpace and your first friend Tom. Do you remember Tom? Like everyone had
Oh,
Tom.
MySpace, yeah.
Right?
Tom.
I hope I can meet Tom someday. That's my life goal. Anyway, well, have a wonderful week,
Anyway.
everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Canadian Salad is written and produced in British Columbia, Canada by Hoshin Ho and Andrea McCoy. Theme music is by Naver Avatyan from Pixabay.
This has been a good Drinklin production.